Okay, cool.
Hi, hello everyone. Hi, James.
How are you? It's
I'm
so
so
good to see you.
so good to see you. It's been many years. For anybody who doesn't know James or James's work yet, James is an entrepreneur. He has combined his lives across oceans and across continents. We met on a whole different continent. We're gonna share with you that little story after. He's also a film producer, and right now he is creating a documentary. What is the name of the documentary? Please share
It's
it.
called Chasing the Present.
Chasing
Um,
the present.
yeah, we've been working on it for the last 4 years. It's I guess from like the age of 15 until now I'm 36 as of like 3 days ago. But from the age of 15 until like 33, I was like having really bad anxiety, suffering from panic attacks and all kinds of stuff. So I wanted to try to figure out why I was experiencing that. And I basically spent 2.5 years traveling around the world, speaking to indigenous cultures and shamans and monks and nuns and people everywhere, trying to understand, where anxiety comes from and how to deal with it and how to heal it. And yeah, we filmed it, and it turned out to be something that I didn't expect for sure. And it was a really beautiful journey, and we're excited to release it. It'll be in August on like iTunes and that kind of thing, and then by the end of the year, hopefully on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon or iTunes, Apple TV. So let's see what happens. But yeah,
That's
a lot of good
amazing.
things. And also in July, we're doing a summit with Hay House, and
Oh, great.
yeah, and it's amazing. We have like 27 different experts that we spoke to about anxiety and their path through anxiety and or depression or any mental health issues. And we're going to be sharing that. It's cool. There's a lot of cool people involved. We have like Russell Brand and Ed Sheeran and um, Joseph Goldstein and Sharon Salzberg and Gary Weber and Marina Abramovic and Alex Gray and Graham
Wow.
Hancock and so many amazing people involved in the summit that we're putting together. And that'll be released like the end of July, I guess.
That's amazing. And is the summit going to be digital or analog?
It'll be digital. It'll be on the Hay House website. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I love the Hay House. It's because of Louis Hay, actually, the author of
Yeah,
Heal Your
exactly.
Life, Your Body, who was the founder of Hay House, that I really transformed my life. And I realized that during a very challenging time in my life that I had, where I realized, wow, I'm so far away from loving myself. It's thanks to her work that I realized how to decipher the many different layers that they are until you reach your inner child, until you come into that wholeness by embracing your inner child. And I
Mm.
find her work monumental as a gift for our world. So I'm so grateful that it lives on in different shapes and forms, and that
Yeah,
you are
she
going
does
to
a
go.
lot of amazing stuff, and she does, or not her, but her company, does a lot of incredible stuff. And they do lots of online summits, like really good quality stuff. A really good friend of mine, and he's now working with us on my project. He produced the film called Heal. I don't know if you saw that, but it was on Netflix for a while. And
Yeah.
they're doing summits. They do Heal summits. They're working on their third one currently, also with Hay House. And yeah, it's just really good stuff. It's really important, especially in these crazy times that we're living in. Where we're just like, I mean, it's very hard right now to not feel anxious, in almost any country in the world. Everybody, I mean, not maybe not everybody, but the majority of people are really, there's a little bit of just underlying anxiety, whether it's a little bit in some people and, overwhelming in others. I mean, unfortunately, I even just read a news headline today in America. Someone literally killed their wife and then killed themselves because they found out that the wife had the coronavirus. So this literally happened today in Illinois. Like, just unbelievable the amount of anxiety and stress and fear that everyone's feeling, at this time. It's horrible.
Knowing a bit of your personal story, and that usually also our personal story, or where we are feeling there is a challenge, is the entry to the path of wanting to explore, wanting to heal, wanting to transform, that eventually led you also, and as you shared, to create that film. I was wanting to know from you, How does anxiety feel for you? What is anxiety for you?
It's different now for me than it was, like for example, even just before I started making the film. Just to give a little background on my anxiety. When I was 15, I was stung by a wasp and had to be rushed to the emergency room and given an adrenaline needle to get my heart started to beat again. So from that
Mhm.
moment on, I kind of, and then there's obviously lots of things that happen in childhood and all this kind of stuff. But I always go back to that moment because from that point on, I start to feel strange. I start to feel anxiety. And for me, I mean, as little as, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I couldn't even drive on the highway, because I would start to drive and then I would get these feelings. So anxiety for me feels like it starts physical. It starts with
Mhm.
like some kind of a feeling in my body, and that's not normal. I mean, whether a tingliness, and then I start to have these thoughts of like, oh my God, what's happening to me? What's wrong? Am I dying? What's going on? And then the tingliness gets worse. The more that I participate with the thoughts, the more I start to feel these sensations even more, and gets to the point where I can't even move my mouth, I can't even speak, and then get to the point where I can't breathe, and I literally am on the side of the road just like trying to breathe. Um, yeah, and it's very tense. Anxiety
Mhm.
for me wasn't just a light stress. I was having full-blown panic attacks on a regular basis.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. And how would you say, from the moment that you started wanting to create that film and the people you have met, the experts you have met, what have you learned for you? How has it contributed to your own dealing with anxiety?
For me, I mean, I started like we didn't know. We were like, okay, what's a natural way that we can excuse me for 1 second. Okay, cool. What's a natural way that we can heal anxiety? So we just traveled. We went to India because everybody said, I've done yoga at that point in my life. I had done yoga a few times. And I thought like, hey, everybody's talking about yoga. Let's go to India and just immerse ourselves and do a yoga teacher training. So we started by going to India and studying traditional Hatha yoga in Rishikesh and doing a yoga teacher training. And then when we were there, I started to learn all this philosophy because part of the day, 2 hours a day, we sat and listened to an amazing teacher called Vijay, who was just like such a brother to me. And it just started opening up all of these things. And then while we were there, I was like, wow, okay. And I had a meditation, but not so much of a practice at that point. And then in that 30 days of yoga all day, my meditation practice really grew. And at the same time, I was hearing stuff about ayahuasca, which was like my biggest fear. Like, this stuff is crazy. I never want to do that. I was like, oh, but we heard from like 3 different people that they went to like this place and they experienced ayahuasca. So we thought, okay, let's reach out to this place. We know it's very hard to film because so many people go there with cancer and other, very difficult things, like depression, anxiety, things they're trying to overcome. And a lot of people don't like to be filmed when they're going through such a deep process. But we reached out to them and had several phone meetings, and they liked us, and they thought what we were doing was honest and authentic, and that we would portray ayahuasca in the correct way. So they invited
Mhm.
us to go. So, that started that. And then we went there and did that. And then, I mean, that's a whole 2 hour conversation in itself. But I had a very, I had a very, some very big insights in that experience. And, and then we were in Nepal, helping to rebuild schools for the earthquake victims that had, their whole village and schools and stuff had been destroyed. And one of my good friends, Justin, does incredible work over there rebuilding schools, and he invited us to come check it out. So we went there and did that, and studied meditation there with some nuns in the mountains in Nepal, and it was just incredible. And then we drove across all of the U.S. In a Jeep. We did juice cleanses. Went to Burning Man. And then we stayed in New York and started just meeting people and started talking to people. And one of the conversations that I had always stands out for me the most. And the
Mhm.
conversation that I had was with this guy called Gary Weber. Super amazing guy. He's a non-duality teacher. And he said something to me. I wasn't allowed to I didn't even know the director Mark Waters and our other good friend Mike Beach, who was involved in the filmmaking process with us. They said, this guy's amazing. We want you to talk to him. Don't research him. Don't read any of his books. Just, you're going to go talk to this guy and just have a conversation. It's like, okay. So we set it up, we go to this cool place, and it's beautiful setting. And we sit in the front of the table the first time I meet him. And then we start talking, and he said for him, he got to the point in his life where he just knew that he didn't want to suffer anymore. He made a conscious decision of like, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of the way that I'm living. I'm sick of suffering, and I don't want to suffer anymore. And for me, I see that as really being like a first step, to really understanding and taking charge in a sense, just by realizing that you're sick of suffering, that you don't want to be depressed, that you don't want to have anxiety anymore. And then, so we went down that path and explored it. And then we got even deeper to this understanding of, well, if you don't have the sufferer, there's no one suffering, and for me, that's such a huge, I was like, what? Like, what do you mean and it's like, what part of ourself is really suffering?
Mm.
Is our ultimate self, the part of us that's from God, the part of us that existed since before the Big Bang, the energy that even created that, if that part of ourself, is that part of ourself capable of suffering? Is that part of ourself capable of having anxiety and fear even, and panic and depression? And I think ultimately it's not. So what is the part of ourself that is, and how do we work with that? And that really saved me. That understanding completely saved me, because I jumped in the car again, and I was driving, and I started to feel the anxiety come up. I started to feel it start to slowly take over. And it was doing its thing, and it continued to do its thing. But what didn't take over anymore was my thoughts. Through a solid meditation practice and through this understanding, instead of feeling a certain way, instead of feeling the anxiety or feeling the depression and letting the mind come in and say, oh my God, what's wrong? And it still came in and it still said that, but not letting it grab me and take me down this rabbit hole, which would then always lead to a panic attack.
Mm.
Instead, just being able to watch that thought, and to watch the anxiety, and to watch the feelings in my body, and to just be okay with it, and to realize that everything was going to be okay, and to connect with the deepest part of myself, which ultimately isn't influenced by my mind. So, for me, meditation, I cannot say which thing in my life was the most important, or which thing that I've done healed my anxiety. All I can say is that I feel like the biggest help to me was being able to have distance from my thoughts, being able to
Mm.
realize that I'm not my thoughts, that I'm something more, and that I can witness those thoughts, and being able to be a witness. It's just it's really, it's freedom. It's freedom from this enslavement that our mind has us under, and that understanding, it really changed my life.
Wow, what a story. I'm just going to let this sink in for a moment and honor it with some space here. Thank you. One thing I have learned, and I resonated so much with what you shared, is that the moment, the way we relate to our very self, the way we define our perception of our identity, is the moment the narrative changes. That's basically the hero's journey. Have you come across the works of Joseph Campbell, The Hero's
Yeah, for
Journey?
sure. Definitely. Yeah.
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 For anybody who's listening, there's a beautiful diagram of the so-called hero's journey. I'm going to put it later on in the links description. Um, it basically says that there's this anthropologist called Joseph Campbell who's researched for over 30 years every known to human from every kind of culture, saga, epos, story there is and there was, and mythological stories especially. And he broke it down to a very specific pattern. And that pattern is so beautifully applicable to our very selves. And in this pattern, there's a huge momentum of change, the so-called point of no return. When we go through that, this is where the actual transformation can happen. But because it's such a big, big theme, I'm going to park it for the next time. Please do your own research. And let me redirect this conversation back to you, James.
Well, I can say one thing that could make the hero's journey thing just a simple thing. It's
Yes.
basically the structure of every film. Every
True.
film is the hero's journey. You know, it's normal, and then all of a sudden there's a villain and a good person, and then there's a struggle, and then the good guy wins and he becomes the hero. And that's kind of the essence of the hero's journey. It's in every film, basically. Not every, because now people are starting to get bored of that in the filmmaking world and do things that are just different, but that's basically the foundation of every film.
I think it's because it's also so deeply ingrained in the collective DNA of our self-identification. How to deal with weaknesses, how through those presumed weaknesses to identify our core strengths and to resurrect having embraced everything that is us, all the parts coming to a wholeness. This is where the journey is completed, I feel.
Yeah, definitely.
And for you to really deciding with your conscious being one day, I'm going to change the narrative. I'm going to change who and as what I'm identifying the very self with. Going back to the core, going back to this eternal, non-dual being that we all are is magnificent. Thank you so very much. I had goosebumps all over.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. I mean, you teach meditation, right? You guide people in meditation and.
Yes. Well, the last years I expanded my practice also into holistic coaching and into something that I coined as consciousness coaching, because I believe that we all experience the reality that is just the mirroring of our perception. So it's basically guiding people to the work that you have so beautifully done with yourself. To be responsible for our own being, for our own actions, for our own convictions, and to be as honest to say what is working for you and what is maybe burdening you to blossom into your whole being. So that's the work I'm basically offering for the world, that is fulfilling me while doing it, while witnessing other people become their full self. And meditation is one major key element to how to access our different stages of consciousness, how to connect with our higher self, or the God particle that you want to name it, and how to mute the mind. Yeah, it's such a beautiful tool.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I don't know that there's any, I mean, it came to me several times, throughout the last years, just, I don't see any other purpose of life really, like I think everybody at some point has thought like, why are we here? What's the purpose of life? What's the purpose of being here? And for me, the only answer that makes sense is to learn how to connect with the ultimate source, to learn how to connect with God, to learn how to just be one with that which we are, and to allow that connection to just be the source of how we experience life and how we express life. And I just really don't see another purpose or even the possibility for one, so you being a consciousness coach and guiding people into connecting, I mean, I think it's so important, perhaps the most important thing. So thank you also for doing that. It's beautiful.
Well, now I'm just touched. And to me, this is the biggest celebration of all. It's truly, I feel very celebratory right now, is to be able to connect with people like yourselves, with magnificent souls that I admire so much along the way. And to have maybe 4 years that we spoke last time, but then when we speak, it's just like an instant resonance of
Yeah,
where
yeah,
we
for sure.
are, what we hold to be true.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
I think the journey always starts with the self, but then always goes back to, well, source, as you say. That's why resourcing is so beautiful. And the word religion in itself, I just did some background analysis on the etymology of the word religion. It comes from the Latin word reliquare, which means to go back to the source, basically. So in itself, like the wording, I find beautiful. No matter how we nowadays connect to various religions or not, but the word in itself has a beautiful meaning to me. And then from the self, to me, it always goes to then, how can I serve? Because we start seeing this beauty and the divinity within every single other being.
Yeah, definitely. Like, just to go back to the film, we at the beginning we had this idea of like, hey, let's make a film to help other people. That was the original idea, because in my life, I have some vegan restaurants, and I feel like in the last 10 years, the projects that I've done and stuff had the intention of helping other people. But I
Mhm.
wasn't, but in myself, I was still struggling with anxiety and pains in my body, and I wasn't good. So we started to make the film with that intention, but then we realized like, hey, how can I ever help anybody else if I'm so fucked up, you know?
Mhm.
So we switched the focus of trying to help others to really just trying to first and foremost understand ourselves and help ourselves, and just sharing that in an open and honest way, with the hopes that that could be an inspiration in itself to help others. And but to what you're saying, I think it's important for sure not to just, and some people it's their thing to go live in a cave and just do that their whole life, and that's beautiful and that's cool. And other people are called to get to that place where they know how to connect with the source, and then share, like you said, and bring it out. It's like the ultimate kind of full circle thing, is to just be able to share and to help others. I mean, um, yeah, it's so important, especially even more in these times. We're being told to like distance from each other, and we can't
Mhm.
see each other, we can't hug each other, we can't shake a hand, we can't, kiss. It's like such a strange time, because we're such social beings. We actually like connecting socially, deeply with others is a core fundamental human need, and we're being told we can't, and we're doing it in this way, which is cool, and it's cool that we have the technology to do it, but it's not the same. Like if we were in the room, it would be so much different. If the and hug each other and be with each other, there's something that you can't, you know put on a screen that can copy that. So it's really hard. We're missing something in the moment that we fundamentally need, is connection.
Mhm.
So since we can't
Absolutely.
connect with others, how can we use this time to deepen the connection with ourselves?
Mm. Truth talk. Yep.
you know? And that's what I'm working on at the moment, just deepening that connection. And it'll be over soon. We'll be able to meet again and have our falafel or whatever it is that we want to do. But for now, this is the way things are, and it's a beautiful opportunity, and I've been thinking about it a lot too, just like seeing a lot of stuff on social media, people just getting wasted every day, and just, this is, and it's fine, people do whatever they want to do, but seeing this is going to be over soon, whether it's one
Mhm.
more month or 6 more months, who knows, but eventually it's going to pass. It's
Yeah.
not the end of the world, and we have this opportunity that we may never have again. Like, when do you actually have, it's like being on a retreat, we're like all in a self retreat right now, and we
Loving
have
it.
to be. The government is like
Yep.
literally making us do that. We don't have a choice. So it's pretty cool. You don't you I mean, you just we're literally allowed to be. I'm on an 11 day of a detox right now, day 11 of a juice fast, because I thought like I mean, I've done a lot of them in my life, but only 7 days. And I've always wanted to do a really long one. So I
Mhm.
thought, like, I don't know, maybe this is the only, I mean, when am I ever going to get a chance to like do a month-long cleanse or something like that? Maybe never, again, to take a month away from work and, hey, I'm just going to cleanse for a month, it's hard.
This is luxury.
Yeah, exactly. But now we can do it. I mean, of course, I'm also not downplaying the hardship at all. I mean, I know there's so many people struggling, and just to be able to eat, and in so many countries in the world, there, including the one that I'm in right now, the government is not bailing us out or sending us checks every month to stay at home or anything. So it's like, it's really a struggle. There's literally going to be people starving to death in the world because of this virus, and because they can't work to make the money they need to eat. And there's people losing their houses, and there's so many challenging, difficult things at the moment. But I really feel like it's giving us a chance to reflect on all that and to really question our
Mm.
values, and
Mm.
really connect more with, and reprioritize kind of our lives.
Mhm.
And it's just beautiful to be able to connect with our families and be in these close quarters and have, unlimited time to be able to meditate. And it's cool on some level.
Mm. Now, as a member of the human society, the earthlings in the world, where you and everybody else who's listening have your own power and have a right, a birthright to co-contribute the values that we hold to be true and healthy for our coexistence in this world. The juice cleanse is a beautiful metaphor to me, and the retreat that you mentioned. So now I'm envisioning this planet being in a retreat, the whole planet doing a juice cleanse. It's like Mother Earth saying, okay, let me just detox here some shit. And making space for new values. What would be some values that you would like to enrich our society with?
I mean, I don't know that I'm like the guy to create the values for society, but I think some things that I've been, questioning, uh, definitely, is how much like focus and energy and attention we put on money, and
Mm.
how much of our thoughts and lives revolve around money, making money, spending money, buying stuff. This whole financial concept, it seems, it's crashing. It's the lowest it's been in I don't know how many years. And you see how fickle it is. Like, just one virus and the whole economy, all of these companies, everything is just crashing because we have a virus. Of course, it's a difficult thing and it's a difficult time, but you would think if this economy was a good thing and it was real and it was like set up in the correct way, that it would be able to weather these kind of storms. And that's just, people are just so emotional, and bad news comes out, everybody sells their stock market crashes. Good news comes out, everybody goes and buys them and it goes up. It's just so like emotional in a sense,
Mm.
um, but I don't know. So for me, I think money and prioritizing, seeing the importance of it, but also seeing like that it shouldn't be the whole thing that our life revolves around. You know, also connecting with ourselves and taking the time to do that. Hopefully, that's something that we all come out of this really, you know, having learned a lot from, and understanding that space more, and being able to feel that space more, and wanting to connect with that space more even after this virus is over. Spending the quality of time we're getting to spend with our loved ones, whether we're locked in with our families or with our partners or friends or whatever. But just those connections, those conversations, that being that we're able to share with somebody is also such a gift. So I think really just seeing also, I was saying before, like, this is going to pass by, and then we're going to kind of go back to life as normal. But hopefully in this time, we're learning some things and
Mm.
understanding new parts of ourselves that we can bring into that new life. So it's not the same as it was before. I mean, it's never going to be the same as it was before. I really don't think it is. I mean, I'm not that the whole world's going to end and we're going to have one currency and, I'm not really going that far. Maybe someday we will. I don't think that's going to happen now. I think that's quite a ways down the road still. But in terms of just, um, the way that life will be, it's going to be different. A lot of businesses are going to move to online because we're seeing that that's more stable in a sense economically than having to close your restaurant, for example. I have 4 restaurants that just got shut down. we you know I live in Bali, and the government just said no tourists are allowed for 30 days, and now they're going to extend it more than likely to 60 days. So you live in a
Wow.
place where your whole business depends on tourism, and then it's just gone, you know so we rely on others so much for our needs, and to be able to meet our needs and stuff like that. And maybe we learn a little bit more to rely on ourselves, and to rely more on the connection with ourselves, and to still
Mm.
work with others, and communicate and collaborate and all those beautiful things. But really, I don't know, I really hope that the main thing is that people use this time to connect more with themselves, to
Mm.
understand who they are more, to maybe watch their thoughts a bit in this space, and see where they want to go. I know the first week we're a little bit agitated, we're like locked up and stuff like that, but where do we want to go? Why do we always want to go somewhere? Why do we always want to do something? Why is
Mm.
what we
Yeah.
have not enough? Why is who we are not enough? And I think sitting with those questions, really, for me, I'm sitting with them over and over and over again, and there's some of the most powerful questions that you can ask. Why do we feel like we're not enough? you know why do we need more than we have? And I think, just, I mean, if we can really understand the answers to just why do we feel we're not enough, um, if everybody really spent time inquiring into that question, I think the whole world would completely change.
Mm. Yeah. Perhaps we don't need more answers, but just healthy questions.
Mm.
Get us into our own answers rather than just continuously looking out. And that's also for anybody who's listening and watching today, I'm inviting you all, please question all that is being said here.
Yeah, for
Please be
sure.
critical and check in with yourself. Which parts resonate? Cool, take it with you. Which parts don't? That's also fine. Like, I'm inviting you all to establish an internal compass of bullshit and resonance, and let that grow, let that manifest. There is, right now, as you so beautifully put it before, I just heard that it translated to me in terms of perhaps the horizontal mobility is right now limited, but that doesn't allow me to expand on this mobility, on the vertical mobility, like going inward, going upward, connecting with, call it what you want. Some people believe in the angels, higher self, God, you name it, ancestors, but nobody prohibits you from that, if that is something that you can take strength from, and hope, and resilience. And I really recall 2009 is when I first met you by our common friend Nico. You came to visit to Berlin, and I sat down with you, and you shared your story to me, that you left the States with a one-way ticket after questioning your life, what you were doing, and I think a very small, limited amount of monetary value. And you went to Bali because that's what you felt a calling for. And
It's been a while, so the story is a little bit, but I quit school in America, university, and then I flew to Amsterdam, actually, on a one-way ticket.
yes, Amsterdam, right.
Yeah, I was there for 3 or 4 years before I moved to Bali, but then I did the one-way ticket thing again to Bali. So
And you didn't, what really hit me back then is because I was very worried, I was very anxious, especially around money. I was not trusting, I was not connecting. I was a big player when it comes to doubting. And I often drew a lot of hope from your story, because I said, listen, there's this really cool, amazing being who's doing so many things I value and I admire. And he started from almost nothing. You didn't have it already out, laid out for you. You didn't have all the resources, but you went with what you had. And I found this story so helpful for me to believe more in myself.
Thank you. Yeah, I grew up like a normal kid and all that kind of stuff, but I wasn't like when I decided to move to Amsterdam, I just sold my car and I had like $3,000 or $4,000, and that's what I started with. And I didn't have, I didn't want to call my parents and say, hey guys, I'm stuck in Amsterdam and I'm out of money. And even if I did ask, they didn't have extra money laying around to give to me. So didn't have a choice, and I got to the point in Amsterdam where, at certain points I was staying on friends' couches and literally like kind of walking around the street, seeing if there was coins on the ground, so that I could get a €2 Burger King value meal, and which I ate like 5 times a week because it was €2 and you got like a burger and fries. At that point, I wasn't a vegetarian or anything. But and then I changed. I got a job there. Things started to go well. I met an amazing woman and became a vegetarian and started to have shift in my consciousness. Because I'm not saying again that everybody should go and be a vegetarian, but for me, it was the first step of awareness, because I think you can access that through meditation or through maybe even running or surfing or yoga or many different ways. But for me, the first step of awareness was by being aware of what I put in my body. So I started to be aware of that. And then I started to research meditation and what's this and what's that. And eventually I heard of a juice cleanse happening in Bali. I went to it. And when I was there, I just felt so good. And I saw so much opportunity there. And I was like, this place is amazing. I could live here. And I was really sick of the weather in Amsterdam because the weather
Oh,
there
yeah.
sucks. It's so bad. And I grew up in Florida, which is like hot and sunny, and the weather in Amsterdam and Berlin and stuff, it's just miserable, most of the year. So I couldn't take it. I went to Bali and I was doing daily meditations with this amazing guy that I met on the Juice Fast. He came to teach, and he, one day we were meditating, and he saw this. He knew about this place that was for rent. And he said, "Hey, do you think you could do anything with that place?" Like, I have no idea. I was like, well, there's not really a good juice bar in Bali, so maybe we can make juices and have like a little health clinic upstairs. And he's like, all right, let's do it. You want to do it? I was like, okay. So we just like started, and I was behind the bar, like making juices, and the juice machine, and teaching the Balinese people. They thought I was crazy when I said, like, we put the vegetables in the juicer. Like, they're like, so we taught them literally how to make green juice. And then we were just packed from the day we were open. We had 300 people come, opening day, or 400 even. And it was just packed from day one, and just grew and grew and grew, and just did really well. And from that, I had many opportunities to expand. But I felt, I don't know, I felt, I always trace it back to one thing when you say like I went and, I feel like I, did things and whatever. But first of all, I'm pretty sure I wasn't the part of me that, I don't know. It's very complicated to explain, but I think I trace it all back to one day when I had nothing and I was in the closet, literally meditating, and I, for the first time in my life, felt truly grateful. And it was the time in my life where I had the least of material possessions. I had the least, but I actually really 100% with every cell in my body connected with gratitude. And just like just 5 minutes in that space completely changed my life. And I hear a lot of people always, yeah, I'm so grateful and things, and it's great to be grateful. But there's something that happens when you really, 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 really resonate in that space of gratitude. I think for me, it just completely changed my life. And I always, like, when things started to go uphill for me, I trace back to that moment for some reason, that feeling that I had in the closet meditating, just learning how to meditate, and like, oh, I need to try to feel grateful, and tried it for a long time. And then, I don't know, it just happened.
Now that was reason for me to be grateful and to saturate this exchange with a palpable speechlessness, humbled to the core and touched by your grace. I truly felt excited whilst listening to your story. And thank you for this really transparent share. It's because, especially to the people today listening to us, listening to your story, on the verge of focusing on what they may be losing, this is a huge invitation, if they're willing, of course, to change the game around and start focusing on what they can be grateful for.
Definitely.
And read every dynamic. Yeah.
We still have so much to be grateful for. So much.
So much.
I mean, just even if we don't have it, even if, the people have the least, at least they still have consciousness, they're still experiencing life, at the fundamental core, whether it be perceived as a good experience or a bad experience, that's up to the perceiver. But the fact that we still have life and we still have consciousness is just the first start of being grateful, just being grateful for that. And then I guess even, these gratitude journals and things like that are super helpful, super cool. Just to start listing the things that we're grateful for. And you see how crazy big the list gets, You start sitting and you're like, I don't know, I'm not great. Even like the most angry, pissed off person who just hates life, if they sit down with a gratitude journal, you know what I mean? They're gonna see like, whoa, okay, there's actually way more things to be grateful for than I thought,
Maybe that's something that can become, excuse my French, viral.
That's fine.
Like
You're
I just focused on this guy that you shared earlier with, who terminated his wife's life and his own, the guy from Illinois. What if, before he went all bonkers, before he drowned in despair, what if he would have been exposed to any impulse from someone or something would tell him, dude, okay, just sit down here for a moment. Take a breath. Is your heart beating right now? Is your hair growing right now? Do you have at least a fruit or vegetable? Is the soil underneath you growing? Is your love for your wife existing? And start to invite him to shift his focus. I'm pretty positive this catastrophe could have been averted.
Yeah, definitely. It's possible. It's possible. In those moments,
yeah,
so
sorry,
hard.
please.
It's just, for some people, there's definitely severe mental illness that's involved, that I'm not qualified to speak about. But I know that there's very difficult things that people have to deal with. But I think just in general, if we, from what I've experienced and all the different people that I've spoken with and friends and family and whatnot, that the space from our thoughts, the space from our thoughts, how do we get that space? The idea of picking up the gun and doing that is a thought. The mind says to do it. So if we can figure out a way at all costs to get space from those thoughts, then we have the power. We have the power, because it's that space that really, it's just invaluable. Invaluable.
And perhaps sitting then in that beautiful airbag of space, between you and your thoughts, to decipher or to start to understand, to become more in lack of this word, to truly understand where, or try to trace back the origin of a certain thought. Is it at all ours? Or have we picked it up along the way from outer conditioning, or from our parents, or parents' parents, or from old wounds, or even films that we are seeing? Because the brain, when we see a film, for example, cannot differentiate between a real life experience or something that it sees on a cellular screen. It is being stored in the same database of your memory system. So nutrition can also come in, in terms of visuals that we've been exposed to, stories that we are embracing in. And that's what I'm learning to do with myself, is to understand and identify the thoughts that have been presenting themselves towards me. Do I need to, first of all, feed them, as you so beautifully said, and then at all, trying to understand where they come from. And when they're not truly mine or from higher source, to release them and to send them back with love. Because as much as I may be isolating myself, I'm still a part of this human ocean. There is this collective consciousness still prevailing.
Definitely.
And that's why I'm so grateful in your work when you said, and I wholeheartedly agree, that if we really want to change the world that we're part of, we have to start with ourselves. That's already something that has evolved, that has healed the best of our abilities.
And ultimately, by changing ourselves, we're changing everyone. Because, I really fundamentally believe, I really feel that, one of the biggest problems with everything is this illusion that we're separate. Because if we realized that we weren't separate from one another, that we were all the same thing, we wouldn't do what we're doing, we wouldn't act the way we would act. We wouldn't be as greedy and hurtful and angry and mean and everything to the other, because it's actually ourselves, And for me, that illusion of separation is the fundamental problem, really, that we think that we're separate. But I think, eventually we realize that we're not. And when we realize that we're not, and we do work on ourselves, we're doing work on everybody. And I think in these times we get to see more and more of the lack of separation when global things happen. I always had thought that it would take, like, I don't know, an alien coming from an alien war or something for humans to come together and realize that we're all one thing. The idea of China and America and Europe and Greece and South America being these separate places with separate people, it becomes a lot less important when we're all in this together, trying to, overcome this virus at the moment. It's just, that stuff all kind of disappears. And it's like, we're all humans and we're all trying to do that. We're all one. We're all trying to get past this situation, So it's a perfect opportunity for us to also have that realization, that we're all one. And so it's hard to talk about even. It's just, it's such a real, beautiful thing.
That reminds me of this magnificent quote. I'm not sure if Rumi wrote it or Shams of Tabrizi, but they said that to the ones who feel it, they cannot speak of it. The ones who do speak of it haven't felt it.
It's a nice quote. Beautiful quote. Awesome.
Would you be willing to share with the audience, either right now in this video, maybe if I direct them into your account or the account of one of your restaurants, if you want, how they could use this time to upgrade their health and their nervous system?
Yeah, we have a lot of information on our website. It's the Alchemy Bali website. You can just Google Alchemy Bali. That's the first juice place that I opened, and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, it depends where people are at. I wouldn't ever, I've been doing this for a while, and I wouldn't just recommend everybody just start drinking water right now only, or just go on a juice fast straight away. I mean, people have different health conditions, and it's all individual. It's based on individual needs and stuff like that. For some people who are eating, meat 3 times a day, sausages for breakfast, burgers for lunch, and, whatever, and not doing it in moderation. Anything in moderation can be okay, but if someone's on that kind of a diet, maybe just switching to having meat once a week is already a fast on some level. So it's
Yes.
just where you're at basically in the process, and looking at it from that perspective, just with the idea of health in mind. I've been working with a lot right now with Dr. Amy Rochelle, and what she's saying, and a lot of other people, and I totally agree with it. It's the virus, the virus is affecting 80% of the people who get it have mild to no symptoms, but the other 20% are having very, very hard time,
Mm.
and it's because of our immune systems. So if we're strong, if our terrain is strong, then the virus is not going to have as much of a hold on us, because it's not going to be able to affect us. We're going to have strong immune systems. We're going to have, health, and it's just not going to be able to win. But if we're compromised, if our immune system's compromised, if our little, army troops inside of us that are defending us all day, every day are weak, of course the virus is going to be able to come in and attack and win.
Yeah. Well said.
So how do we build our immune system?
Mm.
There's lots of ways to do that. You can see it all over line. Certain supplements, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin B, all these things. Just take, I think it's super wise to take food based supplements, especially at this time. There's lots of good stuff, lots of good research online about that. And if people are interested in doing a juice cleanse, they could check out Dr. Amy Rochelle or Dr. Gabriel Cousins, who's someone that I also worked with quite a lot.
Mhm.
You could check out our Alchemy Bali social media. We have Instagram, and if anyone's also interested in any of the other stuff I've been talking about, we have Instagram, Chasing the Present, which is the film that's coming out very soon. And the website for that is chasingthepresent.com. And
I'm going to make sure to add all the links with the official website just underneath our video so people can directly jump and explore your work, both in the food and health experience as well as the self-exploration path and the filmmaking aspect.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me and conversation and sharing. And it's beautiful. It's really nice
Thank
to see
you.
you again.
Yeah, same here. I'm sending you my heartfelt wishes to Bali. I know that this way we're both connecting instantly, so I'm like high-fiving your higher self. There's no distance in between that. And yeah, thank you for your work. Thank you for sharing and for being with us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank
Great to
you.
see you.
Good to see you.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye.